The Mongols were by no means savages. Their way of life was elaborate. Their empire, the Great Mongol Ulus, stretched from the Pacific Ocean to the Mediterranean Sea. They, before invasion, have already grasped China, Persia, Iraq, half of Central Asia, then Korea, a part of Vietnam, reached Jerusalem, where in those times there were Crusades, fought with knights in Germany, twice unsuccessfully invaded Japan. The Mongols brought to Europe gunpowder and cannons, fire lances and bombards, which they got when conquering China, perfect siege equipment, Saracen catapults, counterbalanced trebuchets, rockets, gunpowder. It was a strong opponent who fought not only in numbers but also in skill, with inexhaustible human reserves and splendid military leadership. The Mongols, like the Spartans above all, were characterized by endurance, resistance to exertion, led a very simple life, and could stay on a campaign for a long time. Weapons belonged to the state and were handed over to the arsenal after the war. Warriors were sent in peacetime for public works. Mongols were excellent archers from horseback. Light cavalry pursued the enemy, heavy cavalry crushed. The cavalry had a large number of spare horses, which allowed the Mongols to move very quickly over long distances. The peculiarity of the Mongolian army was the complete absence of wheeled transport. Only the kibbutz of the Khan, and especially noble persons, were transported on wagons. The main weapon of the Mongol was a bow, which was covered with a special varnish borrowed from the Chinese. It protected the bow from dampness and drying. Training in archery began at the age of 3. The child received a small bow, the size of which increased as he grew. Each warrior had several bows and quivers of arrows, a spear with iron hooks for pulling enemy riders off their horse, a saber, which later gave birth to the Japanese katana, a leather helmet with iron strips, sometimes all iron, and a light long pike. In addition, warriors had harnesses, which they skillfully wielded for hunting and warfare. Some warriors also had crossbows. Protective armor was made quilted, like a absorbent cotton or of strong and thick buffalo skin. The nobles had plate armor like a rich knight later. Rome, great in its horrors and terrible in its greatness. An empire whose achievements are hard to overestimate. Half of the modern Western world lives by Roman law, partly by technology and way of thinking. Rome copied every technology available to it from its neighbors, both in armaments, ships, and engineering. Greece gave Rome a lot of technologies of construction and mechanisms. The Celts of Spain armament, Carthage ships, all contributed to the greatness of Rome their part. Rome stood above all on legions, but at the same time was a giant scientific and industrial corporation with a high standard of living and the highest at that time social security of the citizen. Legions and legionnaires changed a lot over the thousands of years of existence. Legionaries lived better than slaves but worse than free citizens of Rome because the content was not the richest, had to constantly fight. Legionaries, when given free will, liked to plunder and rape the village for 3 days. Served long and hard, as now the Foreign Legion could move from England to Judea, many types of equipment, different armor. Before the legion entered the battle, the legion's light infantrymen or auxiliary troops would pelt the enemy with arrows and darts, and then the legionnaires would go into battle if the enemy had not yet scattered. Roman bows were usual classical, did not have any peculiarities in comparison with Greek or Persian. There were crossbows and stone throwers, and most of them were installed on the fleet, which had strike ships, transports, and transported in huge quantities of liburnarii. Marines, in fact, all the Romans were marines, so they in Osnovna moved ships than the magnificent roads. The main type of weapon of the whole ancient world was a spear, and once again a spear. Widely known pilum, or more correctly hastapilum, consisted of a shaft and an iron tip. It was half inserted into the shaft so that the total length of the spear was about 2 meters. When attacking, soldiers threw the spears at the enemy, and even if the pilum did not cause direct damage to the enemy, it would get stuck in the shield, causing great inconvenience to the enemy. Rome had a very wide variety of swords, 2 of which were status swords and were called perizonium and pugio. The basic gladius is the common name for the 4 types of Roman swords. It was used for fighting in close shield formation, implying stabbing techniques. Roman legionnaires used the lorica hamata, a chainmail, and later hamata was worn by some legionnaires under the segmentata. From the 1st century onwards, a shell made of iron plates attached with copper fittings to a leather base became common. The scutum is a convex growth shield to build the famous tortoise. By exercising strategic reconnaissance, the Mongols would invade and destroy Roman frontier fortresses. The Romans, faced with incomprehensible tactics and an enemy like the Parthians or Germanics, usually suffered defeat. The Mongols would conduct a devastating raid and retreat. The Romans are strong with fleets and rapid mobilization of legions. They happen to lose control of Italy for decades under Hannibal and Spartacus. They rely on the fleet and fortresses, opposing the Mongols' viscous defense and adopting technical innovations, including creating from the Gauls and Germans mounted shooters from copied Mongolian bow, massively saturating the troops with plate armor. To the Romans, it was enough to bind the Mongols until the near death of the Khan. If the Romans stopped civil wars at an external invasion, the Mongols happily indulged in massacres for the Khan's white felt. If the Mongols massacred each other, Rome could recover and at least minimize the Mongol threat by creating another Limes and Hadrian's rampart from the next barbarians. The Mongols were constantly fighting several wars at the same time, and only when fighting the southern Sung Empire did they face the powerful centralized defenses of an empire with great economic power that they could barely push through over many decades. So Rome, even if not victorious, would reduce the war to a draw due to fleet maneuvering, and most importantly because of the basic rule of empire invasions. You're effective as long as you move in barbarian tribes, subduing them and including them in the army. If you invade another empire's territory, you don't replenish your army, you lose it. The Mongol Empire stood on tribute. The territory was poorly controlled. Once the Mongol Empire staggered, Rome would have gotten a lot of allies. With all due respect to the Mongols, they faced weak and fragmented states and beat them piece by piece. I think Rome would have been beyond them.